Alright guys, um, today I'm gonna go over my um, uh, loot generation system, and this is gonna be part one of the tutorials, and this will probably only be like about 15-20 minutes at the most. This is just gonna be like the preparation of the project, kind of going over what you need to get started. What I'm going to do is start with the character, and right now I opened up, this is just I started with a third person template, and this is all blueprint, by the way. Um, so inside my third person blueprint, um, there's going to be a few things, and there's not a whole lot of actual programming on the character, but I can go over that later. That'll actually be all done per the rest of the tutorials. This is actually mostly just to generate like the basic widgets and stuff, as well as let's see. Actually, this is just doing a loading screen, and this is doing the canvas, so that you can. I think this one is, I can't even remember which one this is, but I'll go over that later in another video. This is just setting max walk speed and things like that. So none of this is really important for the project. It doesn't have anything to do with loot generation. So the character has nothing special, as you can see. The overlap doesn't have anything on it. The escape is just something I was playing around with. And the construction script has nothing on it. So basic third person. The only thing I added to it was a light, which right here is a spotlight, so that it would put light down on the ground around the character, and that was about it. So we're gonna move on to the actual things that are required for the loot generating. So what I do when I create something like this, the first thing I do is I create a structure. Now I'm going to open up my structure here, and so this is what you're going to want to do to prep for the project. You're going to want to create a structure. This is going to be your item structure. This structure is going to hold all of the data that's related to the items. All of the items, like every item is going to have a version of this structure running on it. So basically, um, that's basically based on the fact that you're going to have a master item, and then you're going to have children of that master item, and they're all going to kind of take they're all going to take and inherit their properties from the master, and then those children can have children. So the master is going to have specific things that these will be filled out, like specific things that will be filled out. Some of them won't be filled out. So um, only certain parts of these will actually be filled out on the master, and that's only for things that are going to go and that you want to get inherited all the way down the list. And then what you're going to do is create a set of items. So I'm going to go into my item database, and you're going to have a blueprint master. This is the master that I have. My master is has functionality and things going on to it, which I'll go over later in the other parts of the video. But really all I'm going to do is, like I said, this is only going to be for preparation. I'm not going to go over any of the blueprints in this video. And so this is the master blueprint. It has the item structure connected to it, and it has a bunch of other variables and things that I use for generation and things. But the item structure is where I pull the data from. So I can go in and I can set on the master item if I want to set specific things, and then when you make a child of that, it will inherit, all the children will inherit those stats from the master until you change them. So so I basically make each rarity, quality of item, whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter how you do it. You could do it any way you want. If you want there to be a rarity, if you just want to do specific types like weapons and gear, you can do that too. If you don't want to have rarities and different things. But let's say, for example, you went with some kind of quality like this. So you go into common, and you're gonna have This is the common master. So then you're going to have, see, what this right here is an inherited child of the master, main master. This is item blueprint master, and when you go into each one of these, epic is going to have item blueprint master underscore epic. It's the same thing for all of them. So common gets underscore common, and these are all the first ones children that I made. And from that child gets specific things. It's obviously going to be common, right? Because it's the common master. So every child that is created from that common master, you can set that master to have common, and all of its children are going to inherit that rarity. So you don't have to fill that out on all the other children. The title text can go there if you want it to, but essentially the title text can be something that you can fill out later. You can use a database if you want to fill all these things out as well. These don't have to be done with the structure. I mean, they can be done with a database. You can use that stuff. That's a whole other thing though, so I won't go into that. But let's just keep with this. If you wanted the item type to be one thing inherited from the master of the common, then you could fill something out here, and it would actually inherit all its children will inherit that, all the common children. And so within the common, I have folders, subfolders that are for each type. So boots, and then there's going to be a common boot, and then that's going to be every boot item that's common is going to be in a child of this one right here. So I would create, if I want to make a boot, another boot, I would create a child blueprint class, and then I would start setting its name and doing other things, and I would always leave my template alone, so that way I can always have a template to pull from that's completely empty. And so all of them are going to be set up that way. Chest, gloves, they're all going to be like that. And you do that for however many things you want. If you want weapons, and you can do that, you can subfolder it however you want. You could do weapons, and inside weapons you can have specific types of weapons, and then you can do, like, swords, and then another folder for spears, and another folder for bows or something like that. So and it's going to essentially be the same thing. You're still going to use this common weapon thing, and you're going to put them in, and you might make it common bow is the next inherited item, and then you know that within that it's going to be, the type is going to be a bow. So then you would take and you would fill out the type as bow instead of weapon, because that's the next inherited child. So you can make a bow, and you can make a sword, and you would just fill those out. And I'm going to go back to the structure here because I know I've been jumping around a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up on how this is going to start getting set up. If you're already kind of like understanding this, and you can see what I'm doing here, feel free to jump ahead, create your stuff, but always remember that your first one needs to be from the master. You need to make a master, and then you need to make sub-masters of each type of thing that you want, and go from individually inside those, and then start making children of that one, and then go inside and make children of whatever else until you don't need any more children. Don't go in from the beginning and try to make a child of the master every time, because that's not what you want to do. That'll just not work properly. So let's go back to the item struct here. So now I'm going to pull this open and go over everything in it. And you're going to have to set something up like this. It doesn't have to have these exact things. It doesn't have to have these exact variables or names or stats or any of this stuff. But it's whatever you want it to be. But I decided to do stuff like this because I made a specific set, like what was it? A loot like style. And so I used an actor. The actor is something that can be put in there, and you can decide what you want the actor to be. Like if you have a specific mesh that you want to show when it drops on the ground, when it spawns, that's what it's going to do. It's going to spawn that actor. And then the item image is just whatever image you want to show on the widget. If you want to have an image that shows on the widget, you don't have to. That's just another thing. Again, like I said, all this can be whatever you want it to be. The title text, that's a specific thing that, like my title for Let me pull open something else real quick to show you what some of this stuff does. So let's go to my widgets, and let's open this one. So, oh no, not that. Here it is. So this is what one would look like. And now I don't know why. Where did my other one go here? Come on now. Let's see. No. Did I open two of these? No. Okay. Okay. So wanted to leave the struct open, but okay. So this is, I'm gonna have to reopen the struct in a second, I think, because it's just being dumb. This is essentially where all these things are. So let's go get that struct back open again, and hopefully that'll pull. Yes, there it is. Okay, so now I can have the struct, and I can have the tooltip open at the same time, and I can go over everything. So my actor is an item, it's an actor, it's an object. That thing does not show up on this widget at all. That's nothing. The image can show on the widget. If I want there to be an image over here somewhere, I can have that show on the widget. It's always something that can be called. The title text is this name right here. The item rarity is basically royal. The item type is chest. So those are those two. And then there's nothing. This stats is just static text that doesn't get inherited from anything. But royal, chest, and this, those are all getting inherited by whatever I type in these specific things. So when it draws that menu to the screen, and you're looking at a specific item, whatever that item has in its structure is what's going to show in these places. So now moving on, it goes to weapon damage. If it has weapon damage, if it's a weapon. If it doesn't have weapon damage, it's not going to show up. If it has an armor value, then the armor value is going to show up right here. The armor is a static text. Stamina text is also a static text, and strength. Those are all static. No, sorry. Strength is not. Strength is not. Strength is something that I switched out. So you can change this primary stat type. So the primary stat type can be whatever you want. If you want it to be like intelligence or intellect or something, and that will actually change this text right here. But the primary stat value will update this information here. So now it gets down to these like 5 items, and that's stat 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if you, for example, if your loot generation system has a maximum of 5 stats that can be ever given to one item, then you can make these 5 stats. And then if you only want 1 or 2 of them to ever be given, then you can put that into the random generation and have it say, well, it'll give 1 and 2, and then it has a real slight chance of giving 3, 4, and 5. And then if it doesn't give them, these won't show up. They'll disappear, and the menu will actually, the widget will shorten itself and compensate for the missing stats. It'll actually, brown line will come up here and fit it better. So then as we go down, it's just another text right here that I think is just another text type, the affix. So that's just another text. These are all texts because I want them to actually say something, right? And these numbers over here are different. These were for these are numbers that I did not throw into the structure because they are generated. Actually, I forget what I had. I know that the 10s were for something. I think it's to generate a random number to tell you. It generates the actual number of how much you're getting of that particular thing. But I was at the end of that. That's like where I stopped working on this project, was adding these. So bear in mind that this isn't completed, and these things will have to be gone over later on in another video. So the affix text is there. This stuff here. And that will get updated based on, again, whatever I write in the structure down here on the affix right here. If I type something in there and it's that specific item that you're hovering over with your mouse, that information is going to display right here. And then the lore is just, this bottom one. It's the same thing. It's all the same. It's just another text that can be dynamically changed based on the structure and the item that you're looking at the time that's drawing the widget. So again, you can do these any way you want. You can have whatever information you want to put and display, and you can decide whether or not you want to use them all in the widget, or if you just need parts of them in the widget. But it's a good way to keep track of all of the variables that one item might need. So that way you can set them and retrieve them all in one place, basically, and not have to mess around. So that's the item structure. And I also do this text color at the bottom. Text color for the, what did I use that for? Trying to remember what I did with that. Let me pull this up. Text color was for, I don't remember what I used the text color for, but I will go find it out for one of the next videos. It was just another thing that I had in case if I wanted to use something and change text colors for something specific. Okay, so now I can go out of that, and basically to set something up like this, you guys, if you know how to work the widget system, the UMG system pretty well already, it's not too complicated. There is a lot of stuff in here. As you can see, I mean, lots and lots of stuff. I took away the canvas and I did a lot of things like size boxes, vertical boxes, overlays, item images, the item image that I actually have right here. This item image is just for this specific border that I made. I made these in Illustrator, these borders. So you can design your own titles, design whatever you want, or you could do like Destiny does and just use a solid color like purple, yellow, blue, that type of thing. It doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, Destiny proves that. So then there's just a lot of spacers and different things, a lot of borders being used, and it's just playing with it until you get it to look exactly how you want. And then you could even do, for these are just vertical, these are just borders that I used. But if you wanted to replace those with some cool image you made, like a little cool looking ornamental design like type line that goes across, easily do that. Just stick in an image instead that you made in Illustrator or something. That would be another way to make it kind of bring out some fanciness to it. And the text is here only because it allows you to bind the text, obviously, but the text can also be displayed with whatever you put here. It's not going to ever display this name unless the item is that name, because it has a binding. So whatever you type here, it never displays it if you have a binding. The binding always overrides it. And that, I'm not going to go into any of the bindings on this video. Again, this is just for the preparation. So you're going to want to create a structure and call it whatever you want. You're going to want a item database with a blueprint item blueprint master that you can create, and that's just going to be like of type actor. Parent class is actor. So just make an actor blueprint, put a cube on it or something so that you can use it as a reference to see it when it's in the world. And then you're going to want to make children and just set them into your subfolders and make children of that child and set them into each subfolders that's within those other subfolders. So and it takes a little bit of time to go through and do all that, but once you get it kind of going, let's go into legendary and let's go to, actually chest, there's not even, hold on one second, let me go back. I think it's epic and glorified. I'm just going to go back to epic. There's a couple, the only ones that I have, I want to go back to legendary. So, or not legendary. Legendary is a stupid folder that doesn't need to be there. Royal, I changed the name and the folders they don't delete, so, because I'd have to go out and do it outside of Unreal and I just haven't done that. So, Royal is my class or my rarity type for like the high quality. And I think I have only one pair of gloves that I had set up. And in chests, I had this one. And this is Item Blueprint Master, Legendary Chest, Last Hope of Souls. I'm going to start probably changing it so it doesn't say item blueprint master and then underscore everything. At that point, it's just going to be like legendary chest last hope of souls, whatever. So you don't have to do the same, see the item blueprint master every single time. It's just something I hadn't done yet. And then let's go back to Royal, and let's do, where is it? Weapons. There's actually like a bunch of those. So I did that with the weapons already, as you can see. Royal Blade of Agaroth, or sorry, Blade of Urgoth, and then you know, these different names here: Razor Wind, such and such, Sunflare, things like that. These are all names that I actually came up with myself. But you know, you could use generators from online for names and all that stuff. There's all kinds of cool stuff. You can figure out whatever you need to do, and I'm sure most of anybody who's trying to pursue this tutorial video is going to be able to figure that out themselves. So let me pull open one of these, and as you can see, here's my item structure inside the item. And so because I want this item to have specific things that overrides everything else, it is like I had to go in here and I had to put Fury Guardian Truth. That's the text that it's going to display. The thing is that I can show you here that to determine, like, this kind of will like make you understand how this works. The little yellow you know, the little yellow icon here with the arrow, that means that I've changed it from the default. So I can press that and change it back to the default, obviously, right? And if it doesn't have one, it means that it was inherited with the text that's in there. So Royal it's inherited Royal from that Royal Master, because I typed Royal in the Master and nothing else. So when you go to the Royal Master should only have Royal. See that? And it's inherited from, it actually was changed from the Master, the Blueprint Master, because the Blueprint Master isn't a Royal item. The Blueprint Master is just a master, base master of all of the items that you could possibly have. And so in the Blueprint main template master, you don't really want to fill any of these slots in. You really just want to put in, like, you go down the list like that. So if you know that this is the master of all the Royal items, you can tell it, hey, this is where I'm going to declare that these are all Royal. And then from then on out, that's, you know, all of the children of that are going to be Royal. They're going to inherit that. And so it has inherited that. I changed it to Mace because there was nothing in the other one. And so it means I changed it, so if I wanted to go back, it would actually just be empty. All of this stuff here I just left blank because I don't care right now. And you can start adding and adding and adding. And stat 4 and 5 I left blank. Then there's the affix and the lore. And so, you know, and then, let's see. That's right, the text color was for the, I think it's for the, I want to say it was for the affix text. So that way it can pull that color right from it. I don't have to try to set it every time. And then, let's see. Then there's some other variables that I'll end up going over later, but you don't need to worry about that. These, let's go close item structure. And there's this stuff here is all the actual variables that have to do with the actual stats, the actual values that you get. The other ones, like stat 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, this is only text. This is just text information that you can show. And I should put stat text and whatever so that you can separate them, but I knew the difference. So like stat 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, these are integers, and those are the actual values. So like if you said, oh, I'm going to get, if this one's going to be increased attack speed, this is the amount you're actually going to get of increased attack speed or whatever. And so it pulls that information later. So let's go back, and I won't actually go over all of this stuff yet because I'd have to do that within the blueprint. It'll be a lot easier to kind of explain it all. So now that we've explained the structure and the can interact state interact. I don't think I'm using that interaction actually. And royal item list. This was a database I made to mess around with some stuff. Actually, don't use it right now. This is another database. This is the second version of that. So this has like all of my royal items. And so if I wanted to take this out and save it to um, or bring it in, open it in a spreadsheet or whatever, and then update it, I can, and then re-import it back in here. So if I wanted to change values and things like that, it automatically would let me do that within there, and then I can update it, and it wouldn't have to. I don't have to necessarily go through the structure and do it every time. The only reason why I didn't do it with the database right now is because I set the database up, but I didn't use it because I didn't need that that easy access of changing variables and values and stuff yet. So I might go back and do that later, but at this point it's not really hard. It's like I don't have very many items, and so going through and just literally going into the item database and picking the ones you want and just going through and adding the details, it's not that complicated. It doesn't take that long. It's something that you would do, like, if you need to make a change, and then you can, do it, whatever. If always if you wanted to go to the database later, you always can. It's not that big of a deal because they're kind of set up the same way. Instead of pulling from the structure, you'd pull from the database. So then there's going to be, so we've got the item class master, and if you set up all your items, you could start setting up some items. We've got the item structure. Those are the two main things, and the third thing you're going to need for preparation is a treasure chest. Tool chest, yeah. You're going to need a tool chest. A treasure chest master, and the treasure chest master is going to have all of the blueprinting for spawning stuff, like spawning the items that are going to come out, and the spawn item thing is kind of big. It's definitely freaking big. It's not huge, but it's definitely big. And I'm going to be able to go through all this and explain it all. It's not that complicated. It's essentially like going through and checking and seeing what your roll was. Like every time you open a box, it generates a random number, and then when that you check that number against like percentages, basically. Like, is it better than some number? If it's better than 1, then it essentially sends a signal out and says spawn such and such common items, And you could also have it do it differently. This is a simple way to set it up, and I was probably going to do some other more advanced system later that can determine like how it determines how many I want, because it doesn't spawn 6 of them or whatever. It doesn't spawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't just spawn 6. It rolls every single one to see if you're going to get all 6, or if you're only going to get 1, or if you're going to get 2, or if you're going to get 3. And so you might get a good roll here, and you might get a 98 and get a legendary, but you may still only get like 2 commons, because every single item has its own roll. Same with blues and purples, and that's why I color coded these comment boxes to make it easy to remember. Like, okay, hey, this is the commons, these are the blues, these are the epics, these are the royal items, and so forth. So I'll go over that later, but this video cannot start that. Let me go over the event graph here a little bit. Let me see what we have here. This is essentially just going to be doing some stuff. Let's see. It creates treasure chest widgets and things like that so that you can see a widget that says treasure or chest or something. And then it also accepts when you overlap and things like that. That way it knows where the player is to know if you're in range. And then it also has an on-click event that happens right here that handles spawning stuff. But all of the actual spawning is handled right here. The event graph just takes care of like if you've clicked it. It just knows when you're doing things around it. And The treasure chest literally is just a cube that I shaped in the shape of a treasure chest. I added two trigger boxes. Actually, they're collision boxes. I call them trigger boxes. One is just the trigger box to allow you to determine whether or not the player is near the chest, and the other one is used for the location where the loot's gonna spawn. The loot, like in my setup here, the loot always spawns inside this square. It'll pick a random location inside the square and it'll throw itself down there. So those can be kind of set up. However, they're not. They don't have to be like just like I have them. If you want this to be bigger, you can have it be a little bit bigger. But then keep in mind, like the bigger that this larger square is, the farther away from the chest the player can be and still be able to interact with it. So it's kind of it's a system that doesn't use raycasting, so it's using basically like overlap events. So just bear that in mind. And I put an arrow just so I know which side is like forward. And I'll go over all the variables later in another video. So those are the 3 real items you need to get going. The actual items don't have anything specific on them. They're literally just a cube. There's nothing attached to them. It's just called pickup. It's just a cube. It's just a static mesh cube with a base material. It's nothing special. And I don't know why that's not compiled, but okay. So close that. Go back to content. And this key was for something else. It was to open doors. This is the actual door, because I made a door and a key. That way you can kind of, it was just like a little have fun type of thing, play around. Materials, only got nothing really special. And I didn't do anything with the mannequin crap. I don't do anything with that right now. Geometry, meshes are just the basic meshes. And so as far as getting going and setting up widget stuff, like don't worry about preparing the widgets right now, because there are a lot, and I'm gonna do a whole video on just setting up the widgets, because there's a loading screen widget which I set up, which you don't need. The loot generation ones are basically going to be the actor tooltip here, the canvas, the common item tooltip, the elite item tooltip, the rare and the royal tooltips, and then the treasure chest widget. So there's like 5 or 6 widgets that you actually need in order to kind of make it work similar to the way mine is, where there's 4 different types or quality types. If you're not doing quality types, honestly, then you could do one tooltip. Because the only reason why I made separate ones was because they need to look different, is all. There's going to be one with a purple title and whatever. But if they're all going to be the same, you don't need that. You only need one. And the way that they're set up is honestly not too complicated. Let me see. Yeah, that's right. You go here. I wanted to look at the bind on the text. The text bind, which is right here. Where's the bind? Should be in here. It's not under functions though. What did I do with it? Those are the variables. Item title. What did I do? Item title. Oh, that's right. I just set the variables. I don't actually, all I do is bind it to a variable. That's right. I don't actually like set it up and say, hey, it needs to be binded to anything specific. I just bind it to a variable. And what ends up happening is I set those variables by through the loot system. The loot system gets the information brought to it from the structure, and so all these variables are binded to just the variables inside of this widget. So this widget has a bunch of variables, and the other ones have the same amount of variables. Like each one has the same. The rare is going to have all the same variables. So it's just it takes those and it says, hey, I want these things to be binded. I want the all these different things to be binded to those specific variables, and then I can set those variables on the fly during runtime or whatever, whenever it's generating loot and stuff. But I will be going over all that in more detail later. So as far as preparation goes, that should be it. The level that I made, you don't need to have this. Like this is not required. I just put I put treasure chests and stuff. There's like a chest here. They're all hanging out all over the place, but it doesn't really matter. Like you can just do this on the test world with like your treasure chest that you make. You can just place one down, and then in the next video I'll probably start by creating. I'll go into the treasure chest functionality and the player character functionality. That way you can actually start clicking on things and have that all work. And then in the video after that, I'll go over all of the widgets and how they're set up, and then I will I'll do like another video, probably like the last one. We'll go over the actual item looter, like the actual generation of the items in with the chest. The items themselves. You see, the items themselves, they have a little bit of functionality because they have to draw widgets, but I can go over that during one of the videos too. So all they're really doing is checking to see what's going on, what are they, and then hey, depending on what type of item they are, it generates it generates some information and does stuff. So so the treasure chest generates the items randomly, and the items themselves generate the stats that they're going to have on the fly, like every time as they spawn. And so that all happens at begin play. So when they're created, boom, they get their information. And so yeah, that's not too hard to go through later on. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and call this done for video 1. I really hope that this kind of like gets people excited, because I know I've had a few requests to get one of these videos going, or these tutorials going, because I know a lot of you guys want to actually like do something like this. And again, this is just a simple way to do this. It's not requiring any C++, but like later on, if you were to try to switch this to C++, it's probably not going to be that complicated to redo. Like once you have all the blueprinting, you can kind of just take the algorithms and just change them and write the code for it, essentially, and make all like the item classes. You can make the item classes. You can make the C++ classes, and then just do the same type of thing. Like you could make blueprint classes based off of the C++ class if it had all the functionality in it or whatever, and then just do that or whatever you want to do. Really doesn't matter. Alright, so yeah, that's pretty much it for video 1. I'll see you guys on the next video, and I'm going to try to get that one done as soon as I can. And I'll be posting up some information. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.